So just like that, Apple unveiled a new HomePod, which is interesting. This was previously rumored by Mark Gurman that a new version of the HomePod was coming, although it came way sooner than expected. The original HomePod launched in 2018, after being announced in 2017, and discontinued in March 2021 due to low sales. Then Apple released the HomePod Mini in November 2020, which is still being sold to this day. The new version of the large HomePod is simply called the second-gen HomePod, so here are not 5, not 10, not 20, but 15. Interesting things you need to know about it. At number 1, we have a lower price. So, like I said, the main reason why the original HomePod failed was because it was far too expensive at $349. That's why Apple launched the HomePod Mini for $99, which actually sold very well. So, this new HomePod, can you guess how much it costs? It should probably cost $199, right? No. Or maybe $249. Still no. It costs $299. So, it is $50 cheaper than the original HomePod. I don't know, I just feel like Apple should have given it a much bigger price discount. We'll see if it sells any better than this original or not. And I should also mention that even though in the US it is $50 cheaper, outside of the US it is not as cheap as you would expect. So in the UK, for example, the original used to cost £319, the new one is $299, so it is just £20 cheaper. But it does actually come with some really cool new features. So at number 2, it actually comes with a temperature and humidity sensor, which means that in the Home app, you'll be able to see the temperature in your room and the humidity. And the coolest part is that you'll be able to create automations. For example, your fan could start automatically when the humidity in your room increases, or your blinds could open up in the morning when the sun rises. So yeah, you could do some really, really cool stuff with this. But now here's something very interesting. Apparently the HomePod Mini already has a temperature and humidity sensor, but it is just dormant and was never activated. But it is going to get activated through a software update, iOS 16.3. So whenever it launches, we will get this functionality on the HomePod Mini as well. I think that this is the first time when Apple enabled a dormant hardware feature. Then, number 3, just like with a HomePod Mini, the new HomePod also has the U1 chip. So you can simply hold your iPhone close to it and quickly send the song that you're playing on your iPhone straight to the HomePod, which could be very convenient if, I don't know, you're hosting a party and people just want to quickly change the song that's playing on the HomePod. Number 4, we also have a larger display. So on this original HomePod, the glass was large, but the display itself was actually very small and only in the middle. However, on the HomePod Mini, as you can tell, the display was, well, all of it was essentially the display. And this is the same logic behind the new HomePod. We finally have a full screen display as opposed to just this tiny bit in the middle. Then number 5, we also get Thread support. The HomePod Mini already has this, and essentially what we get is Matter support. So any other Matter or Thread enabled devices would be able to communicate with the HomePod directly, essentially bypassing the Home app, which is really useful if someone else in your household has, let's say, an Android phone, and you both want to control all your smart home accessories. Then number 6, we now have spatial audio and Dolby Atmos support, which would work best if you have multiple HomePods paired together, as you would get spatial awareness between them. Then number 7, we also get a new color, which Apple calls Midnight instead of the old Space Gray. Although, to me, this still kind of looks like Space Gray. Number 8, the power cable is now easily detachable. Before you had to really pull very hard to be able to detach it, and Apple actually advised you not to do that. But now it is officially detachable. Quite useful for when you're traveling and you want to take this with you. Number 9, we now have a new chip inside this new HomePod. So the original came with the Apple A8 chip, which was the same chip as we had inside the iPhone 6. However, this new HomePod comes with the Apple S7 chip, which is the same chip inside the Apple Watch Series 7, which was the same chip as inside the Apple Watch Series 6. Now, this is a bit strange for Apple to downgrade the chip from an iPhone chip to an Apple Watch chip, but it's also strange that they haven't really used the Apple S8 chip, which again is the same as the S7 or the S6, as this is the one that we get inside the newest Apple Watch and also the Apple Watch SC. My only guess is that they actually had some unused stock and they're not expecting this HomePod to sell that well. Now, when it comes to this actual S7 chip, it is both an upgrade as well as a downgrade. You see, CPU-wise, the A8 was a dual-core 1.4 GHz chip. The S7 is a dual-core 1.8 GHz chip. So that's technically an upgrade. Now, when it comes to the RAM, we have 1 GB on both. However, when it comes to the GPU, the Apple A8 was more powerful. although the HomePod doesn't really need a GPU, so I think it's gonna be fine. And then we also get 32 gigabytes of storage as opposed to 16 like with the original HomePod. Also, the S7 is actually based on a much newer manufacturing process, 7 nanometers as opposed to 20, like with the original HomePod's Apple A8. So really, I guess the main reason why Apple made this change is simply because the A8 is no longer being manufactured, and Apple using the newest iPhone chips would have been far too expensive for a HomePod. Reason why they decided to just use an Apple Watch processor. Which, fun fact, is actually what the HomePod Mini is also using, it's just that this is using the Apple S5 chip, so much older. Then number 10, the dimensions have changed a bit. So the new HomePod is actually shorter now. The original was 17.2 centimeters tall, the new one is 16.8, so a tiny bit of difference there, and it is also lighter at 2.34 kilograms as opposed to 2.5, so the weight difference is actually quite significant. So why is that? Why is it so much lighter? Well, that's because it also comes with a few downgrades. So at number 11, the new HomePod has fewer internal speakers than compared to the original. And so if you take a look at the side-by-side images, the original had 7 tweeters in the base, whereas the new model only has 5. So 2 less speakers. Will this result in a downgraded sound quality? We don't really know, but it is indeed possible. You need to remember that when Apple launched the original HomePod, they focused heavily on sound quality, whereas now, as you'll see later in the video, they have actually made some pretty big downgrades in other cases as well to keep that price as low as possible. So they've also downgraded the microphones. We only have 4 mics now as opposed to 6 like we had before. Does this mean that the Siri pickup would be worse? Potentially. But the weirdest one to me is that the Wi-Fi has also been downgraded. So the original HomePod, which keep in mind this was released in 2018 but announced in 2017, so the tech inside is technically 2017, this one came with Wi-Fi 5, which makes sense for a 6-year-old device and 6-year-old specs. So you would expect this new HomePod to come with maybe Wi-Fi 6E as the new MacBooks, but no. Okay, maybe Wi-Fi 6 in that case. Still no. Maybe Wi-Fi 5, the same as this? No, it is actually Wi-Fi 4, a standard from 2009. Yes, a 14-year-old Wi-Fi standard. Now, it's not actually as bad as it sounds. It still supports 2.4 gigahertz bands and 5 gigahertz. It maxes out at 600 megabits per second or 75 megabytes per second transfer speeds. You know, it's fine for high-quality audio, but it's still weird that it's downgraded from this model. Number 14, Bluetooth. So this is still Bluetooth 5.0 rather than 5.3 on the new MacBooks or the AirPods Pro 2s, but the interesting thing here is that you still cannot connect a device via Bluetooth to this. So I'm talking about non-Apple devices. If you have an Android phone or a Windows laptop, you won't be able to connect to the HomePod. You need an iPhone to be able to use this. And as you probably guessed it doesn't even have a headphone jack. So unless you have an iPhone, just don't even think about buying a HomePod. And at number 15, pairing. So if you have an original HomePod and you want to buy a second one, the second generation, you won't be able to pair it with the first one. You need the second one to be the first gen, or you have to upgrade and replace both with the second gens to be able to use those in stereo mode. So if you're thinking about buying a first gen or the second gen, then do check out the YouTube shoppable cards down below. So what do you think about this new HomePod? Are you getting one, or are you simply sticking with the HomePod Mini? And also check out our similar videos, things you didn't know, on the new MacBooks and the Mac Minis. We're getting those in the house or in the studio next week, so stay tuned for that. I'm Daniel, ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.